On this week's episode of A Drier Dose of Disney, Jared shares with us the best ways to avoid crowds.
Welcome to another episode of A Drier Dose of Disney. I'm Jared Dreyer, your host here, and today we've got a great episode for you. We're going to be talking about crowds and how to avoid the crowds. But real quick, want to give you guys a couple updates. First, when we started recording this podcast, we actually recorded a handful of episodes before we ever went live. So that way, when we put our podcast out there on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube, our listeners would have some content to actually listen to other than just a single episode. So this is our first episode that we are recording since we've gone live, and we've actually gotten a lot of great positive feedback on our podcasts already. So thank you to all the listeners that are out there. We've heard a lot of great questions and a lot of, we want to learn more about this tip or trick. And the good news is all of those tips and tricks are already queued up in other episodes that are going to be coming over the next few months here. So please click subscribe, stay tuned. You will hear all of these tips and tricks, especially when it comes to navigating the parks, how to get through the lines without having to wait too long, how to beat the crowds, which actually we're going to talk about quite a bit today. And then the food. We had a lot of questions come in about where are the best places to eat at different parks and what are the best foods to have. So we are going to be talking about all of those. In addition to that, it's been a busy week over here. As you guys can see over my shoulder here, we've got some of our sample merchandise starting to come in with the I Can Do This All Day logo. That's a tumbler back there. I've got a backpack down here on the ground and fanny pack, and we're getting some other stuff. I'm going to highlight all that in a future episode as well as put it on a post on our Facebook page. So please follow us and subscribe on our Facebook page as well, and you'll get a chance to see all of that. Like I said, it's been a busy week. We also got our Butterbeer episode and how to go to Disney for almost free live out there on our Patreon page. So early access to those who support us through Patreon. So we do ask if you have a tip or trick that saved you some money or saved you some time, go to our Patreon page and support us over there, and you'll get access to those episodes now, today. And you can make yourself a Butterbeer this afternoon. That's exactly like what you're going to have at the park. So a lot of great things happening over here at A Drier Dose of Disney. But we want to dive into some of our content here and talk to you about how to beat the crowds at the parks. And this is an important topic, but at the same time, this topic continues to evolve and shift, especially post-COVID. Prior to COVID, there were definite differences on which days you went to the park, what time of year you went to the park. Now, post-COVID, because of some of the changes that we've seen, especially at Disney, the ability to avoid the crowds has become more and more difficult. So we're going to talk about that. What I want to set, though, is a primary expectation for you. If you are going to the Disney park, so Disney, Universal, you're headed out there for a family vacation, you're going to run into crowds. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's the long and short of it. You are going to run into crowds no matter what you do when you go out there. So please be prepared to run into crowds. These tips and tricks are not going to get you an empty park by any means. Now, these tips and tricks can help you avoid some of the larger crowds and stay away from them or get ahead of them during the day. And we're going to go through these one by one, as well as we've got some other episodes that are going to dive into this a little bit more as we go park by park, because there are different tactics to do in each park. But you are always going to run into a crowd whenever you go. Now, let me share with you one of our stories. So back in 2011, our daughter had just been born. She was very young and in a stroller. And I'm a graduate of Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego and class of 2001. And we do class reunions every 5 years. So we were due in 2011 for our 10-year reunion. And I was class president, so I go out for each and every one of those so that I can see my old friends and support the college with helping keep the class very engaged with the university. So we do that every 5 years. And this particular trip in 2011, my wife and I decided to not only take our daughter, who was a newborn, but we invited my parents to go along because they love going to San Diego and vacationing down there. And they came, and the reunion is always the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And when we went down, we actually went out on a Thursday afternoon, and we knew that we'd have all day Friday available. We knew that we'd have obviously Saturday and Sunday for the weekend, which is when the reunion was. So we decided on Friday, hey, just on a whim, let's drive up to Disney. Our daughter's real little. We can get some good pictures. We can have some fun. We can ride most of the rides at Disneyland because they're smaller rides. They're dark rides. They're things that wouldn't frighten her for the most part. And then anything that was larger, so Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, things like that, we could do Child Swap. And we will talk about Child Swap in another episode as well, which is a really cool feature at both Disney and Universal Parks. So definitely you want to tune in for that. But we went up, this was the Friday before Thanksgiving, about 6 days before Thanksgiving. And we walked up to the ticket counter, and I'm not lying at all when I say that when we got to the ticket counter, we were there just before rope drop. It was empty. It was almost like a ghost town, and it was creepy in the sense that we thought, kind of like National Lampoon's Vacation, is this park even open? What is going on today? And we got to the ticket kiosk, and we were able to buy tickets for our little group, my parents, my wife, myself, and our daughter obviously was free at that age. And I asked the lady at the ticket booth, I said, where is everybody? And she said, this is traditionally like one of our slowest days all year, Friday before Thanksgiving. And the reason is so many students get that next week off or part of that week off. And so families will start traveling Saturday and Sunday for that vacation time. So Friday, the week before, everybody's usually in school. And she said, this is like one of our slowest days all year. And I will say, I could not believe how slow it was, how low the crowd levels were. Every line at Disneyland was probably 5 to 10 minutes long at the most. It felt like nobody was in the park. We were able to walk on to pretty much anything we wanted to do. It was also a little chilly and overcast that day, so we had coats and stuff like that. So not your typical Southern California sunny day. I think that also kept people out of the park. But boy, we had one of the best times ever. Of course, the park was already being decorated for Christmas since it was November, and we got to see all of those decorations and the festivities that were happening there. And it was a really great trip for us. So there are these little pockets throughout the year that you can go to the parks where the crowds may be very light or low. And of course, if you have kids that aren't in school, I encourage you, do some research on it. We'll talk about ways to do that research and some partners that are out there that can help you find these days. But I can say it was one of the best days that I've ever had at Disneyland, and the fact that there were no people in the entire park. Now, in contrast, fast forward a few years, when our daughter was a couple years old, we decided to go to Orlando. And again, since she was younger than school age and she wasn't in school, I actually looked at a crowd calendar, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And the lowest time all year, the lowest crowds were in September, which makes sense. All the kids are back in school. Vacations are pretty much done. And we decided to go on our trip in late September. And we flew out there and spent a week out at Disney World. And honestly, the crowds were almost identical to what we've seen during the summer, to what we've seen at spring break. In Colorado, we have fall break, which is similar to our spring break. And we've been out there at all those times a year. And the second to last week or last week of September that we went was almost the identical crowd levels. So know that when you're going out there and you think, oh, this is going to be the best time of year and no one's going to be there, it's going to be crowded. We got lucky when we went that Friday before Thanksgiving to Disneyland, but those times are out there. So definitely you want to take a peek at some crowd calendars, see what's out there, but we're going to talk through this. Now, since COVID, here's the biggest change. You all know that Disney has capped their crowd capacity at each of the parks, which is why the reservations are required. If you go look at the reservation system for Disney World, you're going to find that most of the parks for today, tomorrow, over the next week are fully reserved, which means that they're at capacity. Okay. So whether you're going in the middle of August, in the middle of October, or the middle of January or December during the holidays, these capacity levels are the same. So the crowd level in December at Christmas is going to be identical to what you're going to see the last week of September, which is supposed to be the slowest week of the year, because they cap them and they get fully reserved out. So keep that in mind. The difference is going to be is how quickly do those parks get reserved. Okay, so if you're thinking about that, if I want to travel for the holidays during the Christmas holiday down to Disney World, I probably need to get my reservation in ballpark 4 to 6 months in advance, because anything within 30 days, it's going to be completely booked out. And I'd even say probably closer to 60 or 90 days, it's going to get booked out, especially right at the holiday. So you want to think about how far in advance do I need to start booking these reservations, which we talked about in another episode. But relative to the crowds that are going to be there. Knowing that they're capped, they're going to reach capacity at the Christmas holiday no matter what. So you want to probably get that reservation in during the summer, if not even earlier. If you're going to go the last week of September, the slowest time of the year at Disney World, you can probably make the reservation within 3 to 5 days before you go. So those are some things to keep in mind post-COVID, now that we know that Disney's capping their park capacity. In contrast, Universal, if too many people are coming into the park, they will stop the turnstiles and stop letting people in until people are coming out, because they do cap capacity. But since they don't have the reservation system, and I can speak from personal experience, their capacity levels are much higher than Disney's capacity levels. They typically don't reach them. So at Universal, you're going to see more sways in the population that goes into the parks. Of course, during your summer months, the busy times of the year when people are out there on vacation, the holidays, those parks are going to be jam-packed. During the slower time of years, they're going to be a lot lighter, okay? And that's because more people do go to Disney than to Universal, but the differences are astronomical when you're comparing the two parks. During the summer months, because Disney caps capacity at their parks, you will notice that the Universal parks actually tend to be more busy than the Disney parks. And that's because all the reservations are spoken for at Disney, and that's the max amount of people that can go in. Because of that, people will flood over and flock over to the Universal park. So there is a little bit of a difference there. So when you're going, plan your vacation for whatever works best for you. You need to know that time of year at Disney, like I said, you're going to cap out. So the crowds are going to be relatively the same. Universal is going to fluctuate a little bit more. You want to think also about not just the holidays. Like I said, Christmas is going to be a busy time. You also want to start thinking about things like during the month of October and even September, they've got the Halloween parties that start happening at the Universal Park and at the Disney Park. So it's specifically at the Magic Kingdom. And with that Halloween party, they actually will kick you out of the park if you have a regular admission. Usually, I think it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they start letting in the holiday people with their special wristbands or their special ticket for that event. Those event tickets cost the exact same as a full day at the park, which I believe at Disney is about $140, $149 per person. Don't quote me on that, but it's about that price. Those are probably not the best day if you want to enjoy the Magic Kingdom and enjoy the fireworks. That's probably not the best day to go. In fact, we are going in October, and for our October trip, we actually had to look at the calendars and move things around so that we did not go to the Magic Kingdom on a day with Mickey's party. And the reason is we want to be there, rope drop to close if possible. We want to watch the fireworks show. We want to do all that. And if we went on a day of Mickey's party, we'd have to buy a second admission for that day for that special party. And if we didn't, we'd be forced out of the park early. You want to watch for that. Same thing happens over at Universal. So Universal, they have their Halloween Horror Nights, which run 5 days a week, and they give 2 days a week without it. So if you want to go to Universal and spend a full day there and you don't want to be a part of that party, you definitely want to find those 2 days a week if you're going to go in October and hit one of those. Keep in mind some things about that Halloween party. At the Mickey's Halloween party, it's usually very clean, very family friendly. It is the only time of year, the only event during the year where adults can dress up as one of their favorite Disney characters and go into the park. So on a normal day, you can't just dress up as a Disney princess and walk into a park if you're a female like that, because they don't want kids to think that you're one of the actual princesses there. So they have their princesses that they do the photos with and all that. So they don't allow it. But during Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, they do. So that's one time of year when adults can go in fully dressed up. In fact, we did it a few years ago, and my wife and I went as the Mad Hatter and the Queen of Hearts, and our daughter went as Alice, and we had a wonderful time. So it's a really cool event. It is expensive. They do give you a ton of candy. So we do recommend bring full pillowcases with you, because they will be filling up candy at all the different stations throughout the entire park, and you will go home with more candy than you can imagine. It's a fun event. It's really exciting. There's really good shows, really good fireworks on those nights. Again, there is a separate admission price to doing that. At Universal, they have their Halloween Horror Nights. Those nights are not family friendly. We've been to the parks again during October when we went for a full day when we did not hit the Halloween party. and the decorations that are out are almost themselves not family friendly. And you can imagine when you go during the Halloween Horror Nights, there's a lot of haunted houses, a lot of characters walking around the parks that are missing limbs and zombies, a lot of gore. And Universal has all those classic horror movies. So Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula, and they're definitely playing it up. Keep those things in mind as well. So time of year definitely will impact it. Like we said earlier, if you go at Christmas, the parks are going to hit capacity, but if you get your reservation in, then it's not going to be any different than any other time of year. We also just went on the 4th of July holiday this year to Disney World. And I can tell you the parks were busy. They all hit capacity, but it wasn't outrageous. It wasn't completely off the charts busy. We definitely saw more people around Disney Springs. So when you go to Disney Springs in Orlando, there are no capacity limits there. And so that was definitely a lot busier than what we had seen throughout the other times of the year. But the parks, since they're all capped, they all hit their capacity, and it was just like any other day at the park. So don't be afraid of going at those holiday times. Like I said, Halloween's the one you want to watch out for the most. Spring break, Easter, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, President's Day, your other big holidays, they're going to hit capacity. That's it. It's going to be a good time. You're going to enjoy it. When you're thinking, though, about when you're going to go, like I said, vacation when it's convenient for you and your family, you may want to plan around some of those things like the Halloween parties. But the next point, and this is probably the most important point that I'm going to make today, and we'll talk about our I Can Do This All Day tip of the day in a few minutes, but you want to think about what day of the week am I going to which park? And the reason that I say that's important is because if you think about it, if the parks are going to hit capacity every day of the week, more often than not, you may ask yourself, does it matter what day I go to the park? If they're all at the same level, no, it's not going to matter what day you go to the park. However, you're going to find parks, something like Animal Kingdom, may not hit capacity. Okay, that's probably the least visited park out of the 4 Disney parks that are out there. So if Animal Kingdom is not going to hit capacity, then you may think, I want to target a day at Animal Kingdom when it's not. Because I know Magic Kingdom's going to hit it every single day. And knowing that Magic Kingdom's going to hit every single day, it doesn't matter really what day I go to that park. However, I want to hit Animal Kingdom on a day where nobody else is in the park or it's lower. Yes, it actually does matter what days you go to the park. Now, I spoke earlier about crowd calendars. That is going to be your best tool to figure out what day of the week should I go to which park. Okay, there are a lot of crowd calendars out there. Trust me, I've used 4 or 5 different ones throughout the times that we've gone to Disney. I will share with you our I Can Do This All Day tip in just a moment, which one that we do like the most and which one we think is the most accurate. But the way that these crowd calendars work is they take historic park attendance levels and they make future predictions based on past performance. So they look at last year, what were the busiest days last year, what days of the week were each park maximized out in their capacity, which days should you want to go to which parks, and then they map it all out for you. And then they give you like a stoplight, green, yellow, and red. And of course, red is bad. Red is going to be the busiest times of the year and the busiest days of the week. And then green are the days you want to go to the parks. Okay. Some of them use a number system like 1 through 10. Of course, 10 being the busiest, 1 being the lowest. But they do matter, especially at Universal. So when you're looking at crowd calendars and you see a green day for Universal, it is going to be better than a red day. And trust me, we have hit both. We have hit days that were red days just because the way our schedule worked, whether it was with family or friends and they wanted to hit the park, and that was the only day we could do it. We have gone on red days, and on red days at these parks, it feels more crowded. Now, again, Disney, because of their capacity limits, it doesn't feel a whole lot more different. It just feels a little bit tighter. It feels like there's more people in the space out there. A Universal, huge difference. Massive difference between a red day and a green day at Universal. So you definitely want to plan out what days you're going to what parks. You also want to think about how other people think. Okay, your knee-jerk reaction when you're planning your vacation to go to a Disney park is, especially if you're going to Orlando, is you're probably thinking, I'm going to go to the parks in the order that they were built or their popularity. So I'm going to go to Magic Kingdom first, and I'm going to go to Epcot second, and Hollywood Studios third, and I'm going to go to Animal Kingdom fourth. Those were the orders that they were built in. That makes sense. 80% of other people are already thinking that exact same pattern. So you can see how if you just tweak what days you go to what parks, you can avoid a lot of the crowds that are out there. So for example, one of the best days of the week to go to a Universal park is Monday. And the reason is when people start their vacation, if they fly out over the weekend and Monday's their first day in the park, they are going to go to Magic Kingdom. And if they can't get into Magic Kingdom, they're going to go to probably their second choice, which is like Epcot. And if they're big Star Wars fans, they may do Hollywood Studios. Now, of course, your Harry Potter fans probably do want to start at Universal, and they're probably going to head over there. But these crowd calendars will give you an idea of which days to go to which parks, and traditionally, which ones are the busiest when. So I'd recommend you want to follow those. This actually leads us right into the I can do this all day tip of the week. And that is our friends over at Undercover Tourist. And if you go to their website, undercovertourist.com, you can see their crowd calendars, which by far are the most accurate ones we've ever seen. We have used theirs for multiple years now. When we plan our vacation, we're both California and Orlando. We are definitely looking at their crowd calendars to see which parks should we go to on which days of the week. And they will tell you red, yellow, green, which ones are the best ones to go. And we will map accordingly. Now, again, back to my earlier point, the only time of year that we actually have to alter that is in October, which is what we're coming up on our next trip out there. So we will change it because we want to avoid the Halloween Horror Nights and we want to avoid Mickey's Not So Scary Party. So we're going to go to Magic Kingdom and Universal on days that those are not happening. And then the other days we will filter in and try to get green days on those other parks. Now, again, at Disney, we're not worried about Magic Kingdom on the days that are off from Mickey's Not So Scary Party because it's going to hit capacity anyways. So those are going to be the best days to go to those parks and avoid the crowds for the most part. Now, let me take you to the next tip. Time of day matters, okay? You may be surprised to think, okay, I'm planning on going all day. Yes, you are definitely planning on going all day. You want to be there as long as possible. When you start and when you finish will make a huge difference throughout your day and how successful you are getting on different rides, beating the long line times and eating and the whole 9 yards there. So first and foremost, time and day, rope drop. You've got to be there early. You've got to be there before the park opens. If a park is going to open, say at 8 o'clock in the morning, you want to be out front about 7:30. And the reason is you're going to have to go through security. There's already going to be a huge crowd out there. You're going to be sandwiched in with thousands of other people waiting to get through the turnstiles. They do typically open them early, especially at Magic Kingdom. They will let you in. You can go all the way through Main Street up towards the castle, and you can start filling in the different areas for rope drop. And we will talk about where to go stand in another episode, but you can go stand like you're going to go to Adventureland or you're going to go to Tomorrowland or towards Fantasyland. Again, when the parks open, especially Magic Kingdom, they're going to do a show for you at the castle in the morning, and Mickey and Minnie are going to come out. So you may want to watch that. You definitely want to get there early so that you can get in there and get to your rope drop position before the parks open. The reason is you would be surprised how many people see that the park opens at 8 and they arrive at 8. Okay, or at 10 after or 15 after, just because it took them a little bit longer to get going that morning. If you are already in position for rope drop by the rope drop time, it is going to save you a ton of waiting throughout the day. And the reason is as you move through the parks, the crowds, especially in the morning, move like a big amoeba. And the crowd stays very clustered. So depending on which park you're at, it's going to all move towards usually the same ride or one or two rides. And then from there, it'll start moving either clockwise around the park or counterclockwise around the park. And your goal is to get ahead of it. You want to get ahead of that crowd. And it doesn't mean you're not going to go to the same ride. You may, but you're going to beat the majority of the crowd there. You're going to get on that ride, get off that ride, and you're going to move ahead of that amoeba. And you want to stay ahead of them throughout most of the morning because that amoeba is going to move through the whole park for probably the first 3 hours or so. And if the park opens at 8 a.m., that could be until 11. If it opens at 9, that could be till noon. And then you're going to see close to noon, the park is going to start to stabilize, which means that amoeba is going to disperse itself throughout the whole park, and the whole park is going to have pretty long wait times. And that's going to stay till 2 o'clock. And the reason it stays till 2 is 2 o'clock is when families usually start melting down and kids want to go back to the hotel or go back and swim, or parents are just tired and they're done. And you have some people, and we've done this as well, that we got there at rope drop. We stayed ahead of the crowd. We rode all the rides we could. We rode everything we wanted to ride by 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're going to leave. We're going to go eat dinner offsite. We've already done everything. And then maybe we'll come back and watch fireworks if it's Magic Kingdom. But if it's another park, a smaller park like in Animal Kingdom or a Hollywood Studios, we may say, we've ridden everything. We're done for the day. We're going to go rest and relax. We're going to go put our feet in the hot tub and go get some R&R before we do our next day. The crowds will start to disperse and start to get lower and lower as the day goes on, especially after 2 in the afternoon, which is also why Disney allows park hopping at 2 p.m. Okay. That's also why Universal on their annual passes allows the express pass for annual pass holders after 4 p.m. is because the park levels start to decline in the afternoons, and in the evenings, people are tired and it's hot in Orlando and they're done for the day. So in the evenings, the crowd levels just get lower and lower. Time of day definitely matters. So a couple other tips and tricks to that. You want to target your longer queues, and we'll talk about this again on each episode for each park. You want to target your longer queues at the times that there are shows or parades. So if a parade is at 2 p.m., you want to start thinking 1:45, 2 o'clock. I want to go towards that longer queue if I haven't ridden it yet, because that parade or that show is going to take thousands of people out of the park. They're going to migrate away from what they've been doing to that location, to that show, and they're going to go watch it. Now, once that parade is done or once that show's done, you want to be out of that area. It's going to explode. Really good examples are over at Hollywood Studios. So they've got the Beauty and the Beast show, which is over near the Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster and the Tower of Terror. So when that show happens, it's about a 45 minute show. They run it almost every hour for a few hours throughout the day. As soon as that show's done, you're going to have a few thousand people leaving that auditorium, and they're going to walk to the closest ride to them, which is going to be the Rock and Roller Coaster or the Tower of Terror. You do not want to be anywhere in that vicinity when that happens. Likewise, same thing happens when you go to the Indiana Jones show. So the Stunt Spectacular in there, that auditorium probably holds 5,000 people. So as soon as that show is done, everybody's going to start dispersing. And right next to it, you've got Star Tours, and you've got the entrance into Star Wars Land, the Black Spire Outpost. People are going to start flocking back into that area, and you've got 5,000 people going there. You want to be on the other side of the park. You probably want to be back in Toy Story Land or over by the Rock and Roller Coaster at that point in time. So think about those kinds of things as well. And then in our episode that we talked about what to bring with you to the park, we talked about probably one of the best times to get to some of the longer queues for indoor rides is when it starts to rain. So when it starts to rain, you're going to see everyone just scatter, and they're going to go into all the shops, all the restaurants, all the places they can get away from the water. Now, if you listen to that episode, we talked about bringing flip-flops, bringing a poncho or a rain jacket, swapping out your shoes and putting your poncho over your back. That way you can stay mobile during the rain, because the rain usually only lasts about 30 to 45 minutes and it's a downpour, but no one's going to ride any of the rides. Now, the outdoor rides will all shut down, but the indoor rides keep going. So if you have a really cool indoor ride, say Space Mountain that you want to go, when it starts to rain, head to Space Mountain, because what's going to happen is within a few minutes, that queue is going to empty out most of the people that were already in line. And by the time you get over there, so say it takes you 10 minutes to get over there, you're going to go into a shorter, probably 20, 30-minute queue. You're going to be able to ride Space Mountain and get out of there by the time the rain stops. And then all of a sudden, everybody comes back out and starts running back to those rides because they have short wait times. Okay. Now you can go to an outdoor ride that has a short wait time. Okay. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, because they will keep that one shut down until the rain's done. And we've actually stood in the queue of Seven Dwarfs Mine Train during the rain, waiting for it to reopen, because we knew the second it reopened, we'd be first on to the ride, which actually happened in our 4th of July trip. So once it opened back up, we walked right on the ride. We didn't have to wait at all. Now, granted, we were waiting outside for a little bit for them to run their cars and make sure that everything was good to go before they did reopen it. But it wasn't that same hour or 2 hour long wait out there. You definitely want to target time of day. And then, of course, like I said earlier, as the day goes on, the crowd levels get lower. Dinner is the best time to get out there. So during that time, 5 to 7 p.m., the queues are going to be the shortest, other than at Rope Drop. that you will see all day just because everyone's trying to find food and they are out of the lines. So that's a great time to go do the rides. At Magic Kingdom, if you've seen the fireworks show and maybe you're there a second day and you don't want to see the fireworks show, during the fireworks show, the queues are all just minutes because everybody's out in Main Street and in that central area watching the fireworks show. So that's a perfect time. So time of day is really going to matter as well. Again, we are going to highlight each park, the touring plan, so how to do rope drop, where you should go stand, what you should be doing and thinking about to stay ahead of that crowd and ahead of that amoeba. We're going to do that park by park. So you definitely want to subscribe and tune into those episodes. Again, if any of this advice is helpful to you or saves you time or money, we do ask support us over at Patreon. And we look forward to talking to you more on our future episodes about whether or not Lightning Lane or Express Pass are worth it, how the single rider lines work, child swap, and then those touring plans for each and every single park. After that, we will then go into all the food episodes. So again, I had a lot of people reach out saying, hey, I want to know about the best restaurants at this park. Those are coming. Those are probably about 10 weeks out before we get to those food episodes. So please reach out to me if you have specific questions. Happy to answer those for you. Follow us on Facebook. Make your day a magical one, and we look forward to talking to you again later.